Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the world. My name is Dan Holm. I'm the co-founder of IT Unity, and I'd like to welcome you all to Tech Talk with Bill Baer, our bi-weekly show where Senior Technical Product Manager Bill Baer from Microsoft shares everything that's new with SharePoint 2016, Office 365, and all the other Microsoft goodness. Bill, welcome. How are you today?
Great. How's it going, Dan?
Fantastic. It's an early day here in Hawaii. We actually it's been a good day. As you might know, we launched our Collab Talk show in German this morning. So I've been working all night with the audience over in Germany. I know you've been busy as well. What's been going on your end, Bill?
Well, so we had a couple of things that have happened over the past couple of weeks. Obviously, we kicked it off in late last month with the launch of SharePoint 2016 IT preview. So that was kind of a great moment in time, finally having the ability to put in our customers' hands early versions of our thinking and our vision for SharePoint 2016. And we spent some time discussing, exactly what that means. What does that IT preview portion of SharePoint 2016 mean? And as we talked about before, it was largely indicative of some of those infrastructure investments, those early infrastructure investments that will lay the foundation for us moving forward. And then in addition, about 6 minutes ago, if you check out the Office blogs, we also announced availability of Office Online Server 2016. So the Office Online Server is available, so you can check out that preview. So you can use Office Online Server with your SharePoint 2016 IT preview installations, with your Exchange Server 2016 preview installations, and additionally you can also use it with SharePoint 2013. So if you want to take advantage of Office Online Server and all of the investments that we've made to the Office web applications, you can definitely take advantage of those as well with SharePoint 2013. So it's backward compatible to that extent. And then in addition to that, earlier this week, and we've kind of re-announced it today, we also shipped our first System Center Operations Manager management pack for SharePoint 2016 IT preview. So we're kind of working through this string of releases in respect to our 2016 productivity suite. And you may have seen Julia's announcement yesterday on the Office blogs regarding Office 2016, the client itself. So there's a lot of opportunity coming for 2016. As you can see, we've kind of got the Exchange preview out, followed by SharePoint, followed by the SCOM pack, followed by Office Online Server, and then ultimately, as we move throughout the month, the Office 2016 client. So it's a pretty exciting time across Office client and servers. And then the other thing I should mention is for those of you who finally want to see how durable URLs work, you can do so because you can implement Office Online Server and check out durable links now. So there's a lot going on, at least in that space. So, hopefully everybody's had a chance to see 2016 IT preview yet. I know there have been some questions about some things that individuals have discovered in the product. So hopefully I can, spend a moment to help answer some of those as well.
Fantastic. Well, Bill, how do you want to attack today? Do you have some slides you want to share with us? Do you want to go through each of those things one at a time? And I know we also want to look at insights.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at one of these things, which is insights real quick. We're not actually going to demonstrate it, but I did want to talk to it a little bit. There was a number of questions on the TechNet forum for SharePoint 2016 IT preview. So a lot of people have either speculated what Insights is, or they've tried to configure Insights and wonder what it does. So let me just see if I can figure out how to share my screen in this new thing here.
Yeah, welcome to our new platform, by the way, Bill. And already the quality is fantastic, so I got to say. And there you go, you got it shared. We see you.
Let's see what I can. Okay, so you should be looking at central administration.
Indeed.
Okay, so if you noticed, many of you have discovered in central administration there's a number of new features available, and one of them that has drawn a lot of questions and speculation as of late has been this Microsoft SharePoint Insights service. And you'll notice that by navigating to services in Farm. And when you click on the Insights service, it's going to prompt you to specify a polling or a scan interval. In this case, 5 minutes is the default. And I know a lot of people have kind of walked through that. They've clicked on the service, they've clicked on a scan interval, and they've clicked OK, and then they've wondered what has happened from there. So effectively what the Insights service does, and I demonstrated a little bit at Ignite. So if you go back to the What's New for IT Professionals session at Ignite, and you work through that video, go to the point to where I start talking about telemetry. And effectively the way that the Insights service works, or how you can think about it, that the Insights service itself is a new hybrid for IT option. So we talked about some of the work that we're attempting to do from a telemetry and advanced analytics space with SharePoint 2016. And one of the key ways that we're going to build that service for you is effectively through hybrid. So one of the new things in Office 365 that you've probably noticed under SharePoint administration is the hybrid scenario picker that enables you to programmatically configure hybrid scenarios. If you're enabled for first release, you'll be able to see that today. And as we talked about before, what we're going to do is continue to add new experiences to this hybrid scenario picker. And one of those experiences that you'll soon find is SharePoint Insights. And effectively what Insights does is it submits to us anonymous audit and usage data. And what we do is we transform that using our telemetry engines here at Microsoft, and we send back to you dashboards that show a variety of different things. So some of those we demonstrated at Ignite in the video. So examples of which could be usage by browser, the number of unique visitors per day per site collection, the type of documents your users are accessing most frequently, the type of search queries they're executing, what they're discovering based on those queries, what type of content do they frequently navigate to, what features are your users using most frequently and least frequently, what particular actions, for example, are they taking, so how frequently do they use Search Refiner. So a lot of advanced analytics to how your users are using your SharePoint environment. So basically what Insights does, once we make the service available and you configure it through the hybrid scenario picker, is it'll submit that anonymous audit and usage data to us. We'll transform it using our telemetry engine, and we'll send you back dashboards on premises in SharePoint 2016. And through those dashboards, you can discover a lot of things about how your users are using your platform. Now, the way that we use telemetry, obviously, is for scenarios like A/B testing. In order to understand how features are working with a particular subset of users versus another subset. So now you'll have those same opportunities available to you on premises as well. So that's kind of what Insights is. So the three biggest questions that we've had is, what is this Insights thing and what does it do? And that's what it'll do as soon as we launch it and we have all of the back end prepared for configuration. Obviously, durable URLs is something that you can take advantage of as soon as you install the Office Online Server preview. And then one of the last things was this concept around classification IDs or sensitive information types. So hopefully you can still see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So let's just go ahead and pop over here our Fabricam homepage. So here we are at Fabricam Healthcare Division. We do a lot of different work. We do research and development, creating new drugs, such as something like Reduxicon. We have sales and marketing. We have legal and corporate affairs, and we have human resources. So in this case, human resources at Fabricam is responsible for evaluating new candidates and bringing them on board to the company. So as you can see here, we have a candidate's profile folder. And we should have a profile for a number of different candidates, for Garth and for Suzanne. So in this case, what I want to be able to do is discover sensitive information inside of my environment. So I'm just going to go to the App Launcher and choose Legal and Corporate Affairs, a particular site. And I'm just going to pop into the EDiscovery real quick. I'm going to go to my cases. And then as you can see here, I have a new sensitive information discovery created. Within here, I have a search query called credit cards and social security numbers. So I'm just going to go ahead and navigate into that. Now, one of the things you may notice up here is in my query, I'm using a couple of new keywords. So it's the same EDiscovery Center effectively that you've experienced in SharePoint 2013, but I have this new set of keywords available to me. In this case, it's sensitive information type or sensitive type. And I'm using credit card number or social security number. Those are the two sensitive information types that I'm looking for. And the way that sensitive information types work is effectively it's a combination of pattern matching and proximity scanning. So in respect to proximity, we validate information based on its proximity to another set of verbs. In this case, it could be anywhere from 85 to 55%. And then from a pattern matching perspective, it's using regular expressions in order to identify
Welcome to the webinar. You have entered as an attendee in listen-only mode.
So in this case, that was awkward. So in this case, what we're looking for is a credit card number. So we're going to use a regular expression that's built into these sensitive information types to identify a pattern that matches what could be a credit card number or a social security number. In addition to that, we're also going to perform a proximity scan in order to ensure that we can corroborate the fact that it's a social security number. So it's an easy way to identify and discover information searched in a particular environment. So in this case, it's an OR query, so it's going to find one or the other, and it's going to use proximity to identify which one it should expose to me. So I'm going to go ahead and click Search here on my EDiscovery Center, and what it's going to do is it's going to leverage the search service to identify any information in my environment. We come back, and as you can see from a query statistics perspective, we had one hit, and if I navigate down, you can see that that one hit was against U.S. Social Security number. So I have one match related to that particular term. So moving down, you can see it discovered that candidate profile document for Garth Forth. So if I go ahead and click on that document, I can open it up if I wanted to, if I was a compliance manager. And hopefully you can still see my screen because there was a pop-up. Should be back.
Yes, we can still see it.
And give me just a second. It looks like I have to share Word separately. So I'm just going to go ahead and log in and see what this thing is. So as a compliance manager, I've had a hit. Now I'm curious. I want to see what this is. And as you can see here, we have a social security number for Garth in the document. So it's a quick way to discover sensitive information within an environment. And that's kind of the beauty part about sensitive information types themselves, is you can quickly discover and identify information. Out of the box, we ship 51 of these sensitive information types. Anything from credit card number to U.S. Social Security number to German driver's license number, German passport number, and a variety of different built-in information types that you can use to discover information. Now, the beauty part about this is you can leverage sensitive information types in conjunction with policy templates. So what I can do is I can go back to Legal and Corporate Affairs. Once I'm inside of Legal and Corporate Affairs, I can go to my Document Deletion Policy Center. And what I can do is I can create a new policy assignment, and I can leverage that policy assignment in conjunction with a sensitive information type. So that's kind of one of the key things that people had questions about, is how do I use sensitive information types? I have a blog post on my blog that I did that kind of dives into what they are in detail, but in simplest terms, a sensitive information type is a keyword that underneath it performs proximity scans, performs pattern matching, and helps you easily discover information that your users are storing inside of SharePoint. So that's kind of key in terms of what those are.
That's awesome, Bill. One of our audience members is asking, Kevin, in fact, is asking why the sensitive information type search didn't flag the credit card number as well.
So in this particular case, there was a couple of things that happened. So if I go back, since I was using an OR query and that particular, and both keywords hit on that query, it's going to discover the one that has the highest proximity ranking, which in this case was Social Security number. And proximity ranking is based on a number of different things. It's dependent on the type of term that precedes the actual pattern match. So in this case, my pattern match was Social Security number. I had those three keywords in the document itself, whereas for credit card, number, I only had credit card as a keyword. So just coming back, here's what we want to proximity match on. So in the document itself, instead of having credit card number, I just had credit card followed by Garth's credit card number. Then in the next line, I had U.S. Social Security number. So from a proximity perspective, U.S. Social Security number had a higher match. Because both of those items were present in that particular document, from a query statistics perspective, it's only going to show me one result as opposed to being duplicative. So in this case, it would have been duplicative to show me credit card number because it already exists in this particular document. So the proximity scan is going to pattern match on this U.S. Social Security number as a high value hit and expose that to me first. So it's a way to reduce duplicates and false positives. Now, what I could do is I could change this OR to an AND. Now, in the event that OR becomes an AND, I would have a pattern match on both expressions based on proximity. So then you would see one for credit card and one for Social Security number. So it does take some getting used to in order to interpret, how values are exposed. My recommendation is if you follow my blog post and you hit the very end, if you don't want to read through it because it bores you, you can go to the very end and I have a link to a document, and it's based on Exchange, but this also works inside of SharePoint, that really details what a sensitive information type looks. It deconstructs it, and it shows you how these proximity scans work and why you may have expected to see may not be readily available. Or in this case, kind of one of these scenarios that seems a little odd, but after you experiment with it, it'll actually start to make sense as you work your way through what the and what the or means and their relationship to proximity scans. So, we can kind of come in, and you can probably still see my screen. So in this case, I can drill down into credit card number. And it's going to, in this document, it'll tell you what the format is. So this is a 16-digit format, and it has to pass the Loon test. From a pattern matching perspective, it tells you how it performs pattern matching. And then here's where we kind of get into some of the proximity scanning. So in this case, it's 85% positive or confident if it's within proximity of 300 characters. So it kind of walks you through exactly what the keywords look like in a document. So here are the keywords that the scans look for. And as you can see, card verification, working your way down, Amex, American Express, Visa, MasterCard. So you'll notice that credit card number isn't high on that proximity list. Now what I could do is I could go back to this same document and I could replace the term credit card in Garth's document to card identification number. And then from a hit ratio perspective, I can actually raise the relevance, in this particular case, artificially to just showcase how these things work. But that's kind of the, the nutshell on that. And I don't want to spend too much time on it. I actually think it's a pretty exciting feature because it does provide a lot of value in respect to discovery, but at the same time, it is something that takes a little bit of getting used to as you work your way through how the scans work and how information is discovered. But then once you start pulling those together with document deletion and in-place hold policies through either of the policy centers, you can really create this robust compliance platform within SharePoint 2016, and in this case, an IT preview. So that's kind of a preview of some of these data loss prevention investments that we're making. It's not indicative of everything that you're going to see, but these were some early ones that made it into the IT preview.
Well, Bill, you're getting great feedback from the audience about this feature. People are very excited to see that it's in there. And I think what you explained really helps us see how the searching works. And for those of you who are commenting that that it didn't show you the results that you quite would have expected, I think one of the ways to think about it is, what are you actually doing with the query? And what you're saying is, I'm looking for documents that either are this or this, right? So I'm looking for a document set. I'm not looking to say what is in each document. I'm looking for a document set. And that's the goal, and that's what it's telling us, and it's making it as efficient as possible. Then, you might say, okay, I have a separate task to look for just documents that have credit cards or just documents that have social security numbers, and obviously that GARF profile would show up in each of those situations. So if you think more about the output, which is the list of documents you're getting, then it makes more sense why the input is input syntax is the way it is.
Right, and like I said, the way to think about it is there's a number of different things that come into play as you discover sensitive information. And like I said, it has to do with different ways to discover information, which is based on your query syntax. So you can actually refine these particular queries, and maybe I'll publish some examples a little later today, or I'll send them to you, Dan, so we could do a follow-up or publish it with the webcast. But you can actually come in to a query, and I can specify not only credit card number, but I can specify a leading set of digits that I want to discover. So if I really wanted to refine this query down to discover MasterCards issued by a particular bank, I could actually do so. So I could actually go down and I could look for not only a credit card number pattern match, but I could also narrow that query down to a leading 4 digits of, say, 5369, which could be Bank of America or some other banking organization, where those first 4 identifiers usually identify the issuing bank. So you can really limit these things. Or if you're looking for American Express, you can limit it to, say, a last 4 or 5 digits. So there's a lot of flexibility, and it all comes into how you compose your query. And then the way that you receive the results, again, is not only just based on the query itself, but again, based on those proximity scan metrics, and then your keywords that you're using as part of your query composure. So and will provide you a different result set than using or. So just like a T-SQL query, using and or, they're different operators, and you're going to get a different result set based on how you instrument those. So like I said, it takes some getting used to, but it's definitely available to play with in IT Preview. And all you have to do is, 1, set up an EDiscovery Center, 2, leverage sensitive information types. So create a case, create a query that you want to associate with the case, and then just use the sensitive type prefix, and then specify the friendly name of the type you're looking to instrument. And then lastly, what you'll need is something that contains sensitive information in your content somewhere stored on a SharePoint site or OneDrive for Business. And that's easy to create. For a social security number, you can just create something random, or you can just create a random credit card number, or use some of the keywords that were in the article that I popped up on the screen earlier, like card identification number, and use those keywords within documents. And then you'll have to crawl the content initially before you can actually discover it, because EDiscovery is all search-based. But it's a pretty cool feature, and once you start playing with it and you start understanding how to compose queries, it becomes very powerful in respect to how you can discover information.
And Bill, is this a sensitive document type and the discovery of it specific to SharePoint 2016, or how much can this be extended to N-1 and N-2 versions of SharePoint, and how much of it is going to be live in Office 365 for us?
So if you think about the way that these sensitive information types, or EDiscovery in particular, works, the sensitive information types you would have to instrument in SharePoint 2016. Now, let's say you want to discover information that exists in 2010 or 2013. Effectively, what you would have is SharePoint 2016 indexing your older environments, much like the Cloud Search Service application can help expose information from N-1, N-2, so in-market versions of SharePoint or earlier versions such as 2010. The same thing happens. Because it's all search-based, you can leverage them in the same way, with the caveat being, because the code paths for sensitive information types are native to 2016, you would instrument your queries in an EDiscovery Center in 2016, having indexed your older versions of SharePoint. Now, you can also take advantage of some of these same capabilities in Office 365 as well now. So if you start playing with it in Office 365, you can perform some of the same there. One of the things that we're in the process of testing is whether or not the new cloud hybrid search will enable you to perform a sensitive information type query across cloud and on-premises. So hopefully we'll have some good news as soon as we figure out some of that here soon.
So we've got good news for on-prem. You just need to be indexing your other farms and defining the sensitive information in 2016, and Office 365 compatibility TBD. One other question related to this, is there a rule builder engine that customers can use to define their own types of sensitive information? How can they extend this framework?
Oh, so that's definitely a good question. So, a quick answer is can I create or extend sensitive information types? And the simple answer to the question is yes. Kind of the consultant answer is it depends. So you can actually, if you check MSDN, and I'll provide a link to Dan following the today's episode, but indeed you can extend sensitive information types. You can create your own sensitive information types as far as I know, and I'll just have to confirm, but the document that I pointed at earlier has some instructions, if I'm not mistaken, on extending those, and it looks like it paused screen sharing, but I'll just double check, and in the event that I can find the perfect answer or confirm more positively whether or not they can be extended, I will definitely share that information with Dan so we can post it after the episode. But if you look today at the number of sensitive information types, and I believe you might still be able to see my screen.
Yes.
There's quite a few of them available to you. So it's not just U.S. So here's U.S. driver's license number, for example, but you even have IP address as a sensitive information type, which is kind of an interesting one. So there's a lot of different types that are available out of the box, and I believe they're extensible, but it's just something that I'll have to double check, confirm, and then follow up post-show to make sure I don't give you anything that's misleading.
Fantastic. So we've got a question on Insights as well. Can we jump back to that one real quick?
Yeah, for sure.
So David is asking, are reports that are returned by Insights customizable for each company, or are they generic analytic reports?
So from a reports perspective, as we're still working on developing the back-end infrastructure in order to enable this reporting for SharePoint 2016, I don't know yet if any of these dashboards would be extensible. Now, obviously, if the dashboard is built into on-premises, it would be extensible like any other SharePoint page. If the reports are cloud-driven, obviously, from an extensibility perspective, it changes things a little bit because you would have to instrument them in different ways, just based on where it lives, using Cloud OM versus Server OM. But I will, if you've signed up, now, that's just from a pure customization perspective. How much can I manipulate branding and theming? And that's kind of TBD, and it largely depends on how these reports will be delivered to you. Some work that we're still doing in parallel to continuing to invest in SharePoint 2016. So the next question is are these reports unique to my organization? Now, to answer that question, yes, indeed they are. So they're associated with your deployment, which effectively means they're associated with your organization. So by sending the data to Microsoft, the anonymous audit and usage data, it's a hybrid experience. So the assumption is that you have a tenancy associated with it, and that tenancy is the partition which identifies your organization. So it's not like these reports go into this large collective pool and then a generic console is provided back to you that's inclusive of every customer in the world running SharePoint. It's targeted at your organization and the information that you sent. So the reports that you get back are discrete and associated only with you and your organization.
Fantastic. And so analytics really is like, Insights is really like analytics as a service. We're sending our information up to the cloud, allowing it to be processed, and then getting the benefits of the fact that you guys can rapidly develop those reports and add new reports over time.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the key benefits is the ability to incrementally add value to these particular dashboards. So that's kind of one of the benefits of instrumenting analytics in a hybrid type experience. So And the way that I would frame it is it's almost hybrid for IT admins. And if you think about most of the hybrid capabilities that we have today, they're really targeted at addressing the needs of an end user, whether that's the ability to rationalize information across two discrete data silos, one on-prem and Office 365, through cloud hybrid search, or perhaps it's enabling personalized storage in the cloud through hybrid OneDrive for Business, or Yammer for enterprise social networking with SharePoint. But all of those are really intended to drive experiences that are applicable to the end users themselves. And this is one of those that's designed explicitly for the IT admin to gain greater insight into how their individual deployments are being leveraged. So it's a hybrid IT admin experience, but because it's hybrid, because it's cloud driven, we can continue to innovate on it at a very rapid cadence. So we can add more advanced reporting capabilities or perhaps deliver new dashboards. So there's a lot of value in implementing this new analytics experience in the way that we're implementing it.
Do the analytics that get sent, obviously they're anonymous as you mentioned, do they actually allow you to get that deeper insight into what people are doing with SharePoint 2016 on-prem than you might have been able to do in the past with customer feedback programs and such? Do you actually aggregate across customers for internal telemetry on what's happening in the customer base?
No, today that's not part of the plans. So really these reports are designed for an organization and an organization only. They just get processed through our telemetry engine in order to construct the information and then present it in a way that's human readable. But we don't leverage the reports in any given way, shape, or form.
Awesome. And you mentioned that the beauty of Insights is really not going to be available to people today until the service is lit up. Do you have some expectation on when the service will go live?
We don't yet today have any date that we can necessarily lock in to say that Insights will be available by X date or X date. So we're not at a point yet to where we have anything in respect to exact timing as to availability of service. We'll definitely make an announcement as soon as that becomes available for customers to start instrumenting. For those of you that are in first release and you're looking at the SharePoint Administration Center, the quickest way to discover its availability before anybody else is because it'll pop up as part of the hybrid scenario picker. So the hybrid scenario picker will all of a sudden have the Insights service available for configuration. You simply click on it and then it provisions the necessary infrastructure within the tenancy itself, and then you go through the process of association. And the reason that we wanted to share a little bit of information about what Insights is there was a lot of assumption that it was effectively just a customer experience improvement program type service that runs inside of SharePoint, and it's not CEIP. CEIP still exists. When you provision a web application or you provision a farm, you're prompted to participate in CEIP, and you can opt in or you can opt out of CEIP. Insights isn't CEIP. Insights is advanced telemetry for on-premises SharePoint customers, particularly those of 2016. So the service is already available inside of the product. The back-end infrastructure in order to drive it or to enable it is what we're working on today that we hope to deliver soon so people can take advantage of it and see exactly how it works. But it's going to be a really exciting feature, I think. And like I said, if you really want to see some of how it works, I would go back to that Ignite presentation, scan forward about midway through the presentation where I start talking about telemetry, and I demonstrate some of the ways that we're thinking about it. So if you want to see some of how it looks and the type of information we will potentially provide to you, you'll find some of it there.
Fantastic. And Paul is asking about Insights, noting that it looks just like the content search web part. Can you use KQL in conjunction with Insights?
For that particular question, for SharePoint Insights or for the EDiscovery piece?
I'm guessing he means EDiscovery.
Yeah. So for that, the answer would be yes. For Insights, like I said, it's a set of dashboards that generally, they don't have any relationship to search or any other SharePoint infrastructure. But yeah, I mean, essentially what you're doing is you're instrumenting KQL queries.
And to clarify, we have a couple of users who joined us late, but to clarify, SharePoint Insights as a feature has nothing to do with business insights. It's not a business intelligence feature. It really is, like you said, very eloquently, advanced telemetry for on-prem SharePoint 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. I'm taking a quick look at the questions. Are there? Do you have a link? And I assume it might be on Office Blogs as a few moments ago to the Office Online Server download.
Sure. Actually, let me just go ahead and pull it up on the screen real quick. So if you hit and use SharePoint as your identifying product, it should be one of the first posts that was available. So I just brought this post at 9 a.m. this morning. So we can click on that. It'll be your first post available there. If you scroll through the document, there's a link in here for downloading the ISO from the Download Center. We've already got the documentation live and ready on TechNet, so if you want to configure your WAPI binding and just learn about general installation of Office Online Server Preview, the TechNet documentation is live as well. And then further down, there's also information about the new SCOM management pack. And much like IT Preview, much like SharePoint 2016, we also have a user voice for System Center as well that you can go to if you want to share any feedback around the management pack that we just shipped. So like I said, it should be your first post this morning. The URL is right up here. It's pretty long.
Well, we'll put that in the resources for everyone after this show. And obviously it's easy to get to on blogs.office.com as well. Bill, do you still need a dedicated box for Office Online Server even for testing, or what's the infrastructure requirement for OOS? And is OOS or OOS an actual acronym that we're going to be able to start using?
Yeah, so basically, long story short is some of the capability in Excel services in SharePoint 2016 were deprecated in favor of Office Online Server, and there was a lot of commentary around what that meant. And a lot of people made the assumption that in order to take advantage of capabilities that were first-class citizens in Excel services, I now have to subscribe to a hybrid deployment using Office Online Server, not realizing that Office Online Server is effectively what Office Web Apps used to be called. So Office Web Apps have been rebranded as Office Online Server. It's both a service that exists in Office 365 as well as an on-premises server. So today is what we shipped was the on-premises server. So effectively what you have is Office Web Apps. Now in the past with Office Web Apps, they used to exist as a service application that was instrumented within SharePoint itself. In about September of 2012, we broke the relationship, that affinity to SharePoint, to broaden the scale of Office Web Apps. So Office Web Apps at that point in September of 2012 became a standalone server. By becoming a standalone server, it could not only provide its services to a number of different technologies beyond SharePoint, such as Exchange and Skype for Business, but you could also scale it independent of SharePoint farms. And you didn't need a Office Web Apps installation on a per farm basis. You could effectively have one Web Apps farm that provided services to many SharePoint deployments or Exchange deployments. So instead of being a one-to-one relationship, it became a one-to-many. Office Online Server is the rebrand of Office Web Apps. From an infrastructure perspective, you deploy it in the same way. It has to be deployed as a separate server farm for evaluation purposes. It could just be a single machine that exists. So you could take the IT Preview template in Azure and then spin up a IT Preview VM and then just spin up another virtual machine with Office Online Server. You can establish your binding and leverage it that way. So, long story short is now is OOS an acronym that you can use? That's actually a good question. In the blog post itself, we just shortened it to avoid the repetitive use of Office Online Server Preview within the blog post itself.
Well, it does seem to me sometimes after you get whacked, you start to ooze. So those two acronyms kind of go from one to the other, right? And on the topic of Excel services, now that the some of the Excel services as a standalone service application has been moved, and we're going to be using the perhaps on-prem version of Office Online Server. Actually, Office Online Server on-prem leads to all kinds of interesting things as well. But now that that's happened, Bill, what is the upgrade path for users who have heavy investments in Excel services dashboards? And I'm wondering specifically about one scenario, which is dashboards that are using Excel services to expose information that's actually stored in a list rather than in a typical Excel file.
Right. So kind of, and unfortunately, I'm looking at the clock, and I might have to make this the last answer.
Sure.
At least for this week, we went a little bit over, but in respect to your question, so Excel services, if you look at the SharePoint 2016 IT preview documentation, there's a particular document, what's deprecated in SharePoint 2016 IT preview. Fortunately, it's an extremely short list of features and capabilities that have been deprecated. And as we said, our goal was to not deprecate, and if we did deprecate, we wanted to do it in favor of an improved or advanced way of doing things. So, obsolete means it's gone, and you have no other way to instrument similar functionality. Whereas deprecated typically would entail that either it will be removed in a future version of the product and it exists today with no further investment beyond what had existed in its preceding release, or there's a better way of doing it. So for Excel services, we deprecated a number of different features that are documented on TechNet in favor of bringing them to Office Online Server and Excel Online. Now, the answer to I have functionality that Excel Online doesn't address that's been deprecated in Excel services natively to SharePoint, what happens? Those capabilities will continue to function as you expect them to. So deprecated doesn't mean obsolete. Deprecated just means that we're not going to advance that particular capability because we've found an alternative that works better. So that'll continue to function for you. So, there's kind of that difference between what, marking something obsolete versus marking something as deprecated. So kind of put it in programming language terms and think about MSDN documentation when something's been marked obsolete versus when something's been marked deprecated. Deprecated doesn't mean that you can't leverage it. It just means that there's an alternative to instrumenting similar functionality. In this case, OOS is a way to accommodate some of those things that existed.
Fantastic. One real short, probably yes or no question. Will SharePoint 2016 support a dynamic access control?
That is one that I don't have an answer to, unfortunately. So right. I couldn't begin to speculate on that particular topic. So I don't have a good answer to that question today.
That's okay.
So it's
Bill,
not
as always.
No.
Okay, we'll take that. As always, thank you so much for joining us. I know you have to run off to your next meeting. And for the folks who asked questions that we didn't get to, we will be recording those questions and getting to them at the next Tech Talk. If we can, we'll actually put the answers in the recording for this week's. So we'll try to get some of those answers back to you. We really appreciate all of you joining us on our brand new platform powered by GoToWebinar. We chose this because, as many of you who have been fans of the show in the past have seen, the quality is superior. We're very happy with it. So we're going to be working on giving you guys back the ability to chat with each other. But we certainly appreciate all of your questions. And Bill, as always, thank you so much for your time and your willingness to share your expertise and your guidance with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we'll see everyone on the 25th of September, 2 weeks from today. And at that point, we'll be taking a look at what Microsoft has learned already through the IT preview, what its progress has been, and we'll look at additional new features in SharePoint 2016 IT preview. Until the 25th, thanks so much for coming, and we will see you soon.